Hi, Dana.
Hey.
So actually sitting at the desk where I fed you lasagna very late one day.
Yeah,
That
that was a great time.
yeah, feels like it was a really long time ago, but
I
it was.
know.
Um, and we were getting prepared for our show, which then very quickly got postponed.
Yeah.
So here
Yes.
we are chatting, which is super fun. Um, so should we just get into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Yeah.
So my first sort of spitfire question to you is, if you could have one artist make your portrait and they can be dead or alive, who would it be?
So, one of my friends was doing this portrait series, Alon Cadiz, and I really liked the portrait that she did. It was just like me, like on the in my bathing suit on the beach, just like chilling out, have my sunglasses on. It was, yeah. So I really like that portrait, but
So you
I
already
really,
have one, basically.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I have one. I have one that I like. And it was a part of this like scaffolding project that she was doing.
Mhm.
Um, but let me see. I mean, I really like Maritime Sims work,
Okay.
and I think that would, since like she works a lot with like text and video and just like archival like footage, I think it would be really interesting to
Mhm.
have a portrait that's like not necessarily like figurative. I think
Yeah.
that'd be really cool. So yeah, that's the person. Those are the people. Those are the people.
Awesome. I want to see the one that you already have at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, um, so I was wondering, so we're all like trapped in our houses and whatever and hanging out all the time. I was wondering what's like the last thing, or what's like your favorite thing to eat, or like the last thing that you ate? Like what have you been eating? What's in the fridge?
Okay, so basically, I have literally been eating everything. Like anything that I want, I've been eating, and I've been sort of using quarantine as an excuse to do that. Yeah, I have literally been on this diet of just like eating whatever I want.
That
So
sounds like a good
it's
diet.
been really amazing. It's made
I
me.
like that. I like that. You've been cooking a lot?
No, I'm a terrible cook. I mix things and I know how to like deal with leftovers, but I'm not a very good cook. Um,
Yeah, yeah. That's
but yeah, my husband's been
there's
making
always
a
there's
lot
always, places we could grow in life. So, hey, maybe one day, but not today.
a lot of Levain cookies.
But
But
what have you been ordering?
Levain cookies,
Oh, that sounds good.
so good. They're like this big and this fat. They're just like, oh, so good.
Yeah. Okay, I
Um,
need to get on your I need to get on your level.
yeah.
Like
Whatever you
I'll
want.
be here like eating oatmeal every day. Just real basic shit.
But my favorite things to eat would be dosas, which is a South Indian dish, as well as dumplings. I love dumplings.
Nice.
So
Nice.
if your work could have superpowers, what would it be, and how would you describe those superpowers transferring to the viewer?
Uh, so I mean, I guess it's like I don't know. I mean, I guess this is like kind of basic, but like I want people to be able to uh like feel feelings that they forgot they had from viewing my work.
Mhm.
I think that's like the superpower that I want. I mean, it's like, it's I mean, maybe it's like maybe I want my work to give people like lots of money. So like money isn't a thing anymore. That would be cool. But, realistically, I think I think what would actually like help people like connect with themselves, connect with the world, whatever,
Mhm.
is to be able to like realize feelings in themselves
Yeah,
that they haven't necessarily been able to access.
yeah, I think that's definitely a good one.
Um, okay, I'm gonna ask you like I have this other question about like what clothes you like right now, but I'm gonna ask you like a more serious. I'm gonna leave that to the end.
Sure.
But what's like an interesting thing you've seen lately? And it doesn't necessarily have to be art, but like just like what are you seeing? What are you being influenced by? Because it's like usually we're always like running around the city, whatever. It's like you see like, people taking dumps and like, like people like dancing in the streets and people like yelling at their family members, like, in the like on the phone and just like we're usually like seeing all this crazy shit all over the place. And it's like it's really different now that we don't necessarily have access to the craziness that is New York. So like what have you been seeing lately? Like what have you been noticing?
I mean, you can still sort of see the chaos of the city, but I think that you're able to like notice things much more in focus because there's not so much chaos around, and a lot of the scaffoldings like around where I live have come down, so it's like like I love looking up at buildings, and now that I'm like not rushing to be anywhere, I feel like the one things that I've been noticing are like rooftops, just like looking up at these buildings and being like, I've lived next to this building and I haven't seen the top of it ever.
Yeah.
So that's been something that's like really caught my eye because I've been also getting into more like detailed drawings. So that's been like something that's in the back of my mind. Your process is super interesting. And I think we have some similarities there. So I wanted to ask you, which part of your process do you find most satisfying?
Um, the the most satisfying part is like combining the colors, just
Mm,
like figuring out different color palettes because I mean they just say so much the way that colors come together. It
mm,
says a lot, and also just discovering new colors that look really good next to each other.
yeah.
It's just really fun to it's like getting ready to like go out to the club. It's like, oh, like what's gonna look good next to this.
I
It's just
love
really fun to be able to like put these colors together and see what happens and like make these exciting like discoveries that are just like really simple with just like the regular the colors that I have. It's like I don't necessarily, there's only so many colors, but it's really fun to combine and see what 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 different color schemes I could come up with.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you say that it's like going out to a club.
What's the purpose of abstraction in your work? And what's the purpose of abstraction? I feel like that's like a thing that we could both kind of like use, but yeah, what is your thing with that?
Um, Honestly, I think that it's like quite purposeful in that it like looks at like historical sort of, shapes and images that already exist in like from the culture that I'm from, so Indian culture. And I think that there's so much like imagery available there that when I cut shapes or when I think about what I want the piece to look like, I'm definitely like referencing historical sort of symbols that exist. So for example, like the new collages that I've been making with the concentric circles sort of refers back to the mandalas that are more meditative. So elevating the women like through those sort of meditative symbols versus like, just sort of going in for their faces. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, do you feel like you're combining like the like or how do you see like American symbols and Indian symbols like being combined within your work?
That's really interesting. I don't know if I've thought about it, you know,
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely something I can think about. I'm not entirely sure like how it would happen right now because I haven't really thought about it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just like, I just thought about that.
That's a really interesting thing that you bring up because I think that it would be an interesting place to go to.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a longer question, but I just wanted to say that I love the texture in your paintings, and I feel like it captures a very like specific and quick moment in your process. Whereas like your collages are a little bit more detailed and they look like they are more time consuming because there's more like deliberate arrangement of, you know, images as well as like drawing. So if I'm not wrong about that, how does this difference in time inform the concept of the series and also your mindset as you make the work?
I'd say I'm very bound to the results of the collages, like the smaller like collage like paintings that I make. I'm like very bound to what it looks like in the end. Like I want to be able to hold it up and be like, okay, everything went exactly as planned. Like cool, great, like done. But with the paintings that like I guess are or we're gonna be in the show at the Y, they're very spontaneous, and it's like it's way more of a process where I put the paint down, I make the work on the panel, and it's like that's what it is, and then I have to either accept it as like as done or not.
Yeah.
It's like this is what it is. So it's very it's forcing me to like, you know, like come to terms with what it means for something to be finished and accept the work for whatever it is, whatever it turns out being. So it's a lot more I think it's a lot more challenging because I don't have control over the results.
Yeah.
But
it's satisfying though, right?
Yeah, it's super satisfying because I'm just like, oh, okay, like this is done. Like,
yeah,
you're finished. Like, it's not like, you know, something I'm able to like refine over a period of time. It's just like, it is what it is. Deal with it.
Yeah, I really love that because you can see it, you know, like you can really see that in paintings. And I think that there is that similarity because if you like with the collages that I made that are in the show, with the painting element, I'm deliberately picking colors from the collage itself. And once it's down, like once I start making the swirls, like it's not that I revisit it ever. It's like a quick process and it's done, you know, and I never sort of add to it. So it's like an instant process that's like simultaneously like nerve-wracking as well as satisfying because you know that it's going to get done. Whereas like the collages that don't have painting are like much more like considered, and I can go back to it and be like, okay, I don't want to place it here, you know, I can use tape to sort of
exactly, you can move it around. It's like you could change your mind with it.
Yes.
Like,
yes. Yep.
Is there, I don't know, like which sort of work are you feeling better about these days? Like what sort of work are you said you were working on more detailed drawings, like how you're feeling good at that's what you're feeling good about making.
Honestly, I've noticed that the more detailed I can get with things, the happier I am. Yeah, I don't know. This is something that I've noticed, and it's sort of an exercise in patience because I do like those sort of instant gratification moments where I'm like, oh, I'm done, you know? But I don't know, this is gratifying too because it's like a lot of like effort and it's a lot of like, you know, consideration, which is a totally different type of gratification, but it's nice.
I feel like I've been more into like doing more of like a full body like process with I'm more into like the spontaneous thing right now, just because I'm able to like take the time to like make a mess and clean it up and like experiment with like different materials. So I feel like I've been more like spontaneous, but also I've been making making these scarves just for like fun. So that's been really nice.
They look beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah.
How have you been making those?
I've been using like this, just like this polyester chiffon, and like acrylic ink,
Okay.
and then also I've been using this like alcohol ink that I just like randomly bought for like some of them. Um, but I've just been working with patterns, I guess, just like making patterns.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that now that we have the time, like, to not feel pressurized to go and network and, like, all of this stuff, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like I'm not really being tied down to one thing, and it's just like so
Yeah.
much free time to figure out what I like doing and what I don't like doing. Um, so that's been really, like, gratifying in this time, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. Wait, did I ask you a question? I can't remember.
I think,
Where are we at? Should I ask you?
well, we sort of had a longer conversation about the question I asked you, so I think it's your turn.
Okay. All right. So, um, how does the source material affect your work? Like, and like, can you talk about where your source material comes from a
Mhm.
little bit?
Yeah, so initially I picked this specific source material, which is vintage calendar illustrations and like advertising posters from pre-independent India, so like
Okay.
1930s onward. So they're very old. Um, but the thing is that they've sort of like seeped into contemporary visuals as well, because growing up, like, I had textbooks and um, things like that, and the same sort of calendars that we grew up with that were used to like teach me things. And I remember
Mhm.
that there was like a discrepancy there as well, because like one of like my strongest memories was like being in school, and like one of my textbooks had this hut on one side, and then this like well-built house on the other side, and talking about one being like a bad house and one being like a good house.
Oh wow.
Right. And like,
Cool.
certain things that like
That wouldn't fly these days.
yeah, I mean, Indian textbooks are like a whole different level of, conversation to have. Also like occupation that like women could do and occupation that men could do. And these were all like in our textbooks. So I was like, okay, I definitely want to work with those as source material.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason. But now that I've sort of like had time to research it, and that's because I started working at Poster House, which is a museum dedicated to posters. And the exhibit that's on right now is the sleeping giant from similar posters from China, the UFN size. And I was like, wow, I wonder like if there's a similar history to the Indian posters that I'm working with. And when I sort of researched the history at that time, like there was definitely like um, different standards for women at that time, and they were definitely like used to play political tug of war.
Mhm.
So the images that I'm working with were actually like sort of geared towards women who were not nationalists. They were more supporters of the British Raj. So it's interesting to sort
Hmm.
of see that
Yeah.
um, separation that existed between the women of that time. So obviously, like, it wasn't so easy for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's an interesting thing. Huh.
yeah.
Hmm.
How about like the source material that you use?
Yeah, I mean, I use ebony magazines.
Mhm.
I started using them because it was really hard to find images of Black people anywhere else, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and I mean, before that, I was using boxing magazines, and that was just men.
Hmm.
And then before that, I was just using like textbooks,
Mm.
and that they mostly had white people in them, and I wanted to create work that had people that looked like me in it.
Yeah.
So um so I started using ebony magazines, and then with that, just the content in it, it was just really interesting to see the ways that these 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 different goods that were advertised to Black people, the ways that those items have appeared in my life,
Mhm.
and kind of, you know, looking at like my past, so like being like, oh yeah, like I don't know, what was it? I don't know. There was like a Cheerios ad or a Special K's ad or something, and I
Mhm.
don't know, like Bacardi ads. I was like, oh yeah, that's like something that's been in my house. That's like something that I remember seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know, just like different items that I've connected with, but then also just looking at the ways that like how Newport ads are in the magazine,
Mhm.
and the way that, like, you know, Newports are like so part of Black culture. It's just interesting the way that these kind of like these like kind of like destructive things are just like marketed so aggressively to Black people. Just
Yes.
kind of looking at that as well, and um, just like bringing light to that.
Yeah, and I think the same applies to the advertisements that I look at. Like some of them do like advertise like skin lightening products.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
same thing in the Ebony magazines. It's just like, it's like Black is beautiful one year, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know. But regardless, it's all based in capitalism, you know? It's like it's
yeah,
all based on like some company that like these people, like, you know, in these ads, and like Black people as a whole are not benefiting from. Like Indian people are benefiting from like they're not loving their skin or whatever. Like
yep, yep.
this is yeah.
And it also sort of sells a certain set of ideas and characteristics, which I think both our work sort of tackle, right? Like it's um, like mannerisms, behaviors, family structures, even,
Yeah.
So,
Like
uh,
portraying like an acceptable family structure
right.
that is like based in like, you know, I guess like just like basic ass white culture here, or I guess
Yeah.
like English culture for like the
Yeah.
Indians.
Victorian
Like
ideas,
yeah,
which probably, precedented what, American ideals were as well. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one of the biggest similarities in our work.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's my turn to ask you a question.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, so we both have design backgrounds. So this is sort of like going into our backgrounds a little bit. So I personally find that there are like major differences between the way the art industry operates and the way like the design industry operates. So what has your experience been like navigating, both these industries, and how have you managed the art industry because you have a design background?
Um, I'd say so. Design, it's like not about me. It's not about what I think. It's about the person that I'm making the work for. It's
Yeah.
just like me being able to communicate this idea,
Mhm.
like as simply as possible, and also in a way that attracts the viewer.
Right.
Um, so I would say that because of my design background, I have been able to like use the symbols of design to be able to attract people to my work,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like and I've also been able to make people feel comfortable with my work and have like a sense of home, like
Yeah.
there's a sense of comfort within the work because of, I think, because of the design background and the vocabulary that I've been able to work with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover, but design is about everybody else, and my art is about me and about what I think. Um, so, and trying to get people, trying to, I guess, convince people in a way to to come closer and to consider my ideas.
Mm. Yeah. But I mean, I think for me, in the way that my design background has benefited me is that I don't feel only as an individual. Like, I feel like I can take like a collective mindset into, you know, into account. And I think both our work does that, actually. I
Yeah,
don't, as much as it is about ourselves and our culture, it is about our culture and like our community, which I
definitely.
think is important. The one thing that I have noticed is like the processes are like so different, where, like in design, you're sort of like applauded when you find avenues of ways to like show your work, or avenues to like get your product per se, like out into the world. And I feel like there are more opportunities to do that, whereas in the art world it feels a little bit more like elite, and you don't really know like what you can and can't do, which I feel like I don't know if I want to play to that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can't do. I see artists do ridiculous things all the time. The artists do whatever they want, which is great. It's like we're the ones that determine what is art and what's not, and what's valuable and what's not. So, I don't know. I think
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could feel like that all the time. I think that I've been feeling like that more often, but there are certain like processes, like like applying to these residencies or these grants, and or even just like showing your work in like a different way. Like there are certain do's and don'ts. Or do
I
you
think
not feel like
so.
that?
Um, I mean, I think it does sometimes feel like there are do's and don'ts, but I guess I try not to care,
Yeah.
just because um I everything I feel like everything is so personal. Everything is, as far as, like these like residencies and grants and I don't know, getting into this show or that show. It's like whatever determines whether we're accepted into these things or not, might have to do with the fact that somebody like, got a nice phone call from their friend earlier that day, or maybe they didn't have enough time to eat a snack, so they were
Right.
grumpy. They were like, oh, this person, no. Or,
Yeah, exactly.
there's so many things. So it's like, I want to do something. I want to create whatever I want to create, and also I want to make things that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
Yeah,
Because
I
it's
think in that sense, it's definitely is liberating. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's up to us, and it's up to us to be brave about what we're making. I mean, I can't say that I'm always like, brave about whatever it is that I'm making, but
Yeah.
I want to be. I like.
Yeah, I have been thinking about that. Like, if essentially like the art world is basically like created by people who don't accept people like us, then why would we even want to
Exactly.
be a part of it? But that's
Yeah,
the thing. Like,
exactly.
I feel like there's this huge push towards like include us, include us, include us. It's like, why? You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think that's what kind of upsets me. It's like, I know that there are
It's like,
institutions
this
that,
wasn't made for us, you know? It's like the world wasn't, what this world, it wasn't made for us.
I
But it's
know,
like,
it's
we're
like,
here
why
right
would we
now.
want to be a
We
part
have
of
the
it?
space, so
Yeah,
let's use it.
exactly. So I think there's an interesting conversation to be had over there, because it's like, why do you want to be a part of something that you essentially don't identify with, you know? And that doesn't essentially identify with you?
Yeah. But it's a way, it's like it's a platform to like be like, hey, like, I'm a Black woman. I'm an Indian woman. I'm up here doing this thing,
Mhm.
and then there's gonna be some other black person out there or Indian person out there that's gonna be like, oh wow, she's doing that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I could do whatever I want also. Like I don't need to be doing X, Y, and Z. I don't need to be catering to like, like white standards or whatever. It's like I could be myself like she's being herself.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's like we could be, it's I think it's about inspiring other people to do what they want to do, and to uh be like, I don't know, the best versions of themselves. I don't know. I mean, it's about, I feel like it's about giving back to other people more
Yeah.
than more than trying to cater to the the art world,
Mm-hmm.
at least for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like this is a longer conversation for sure though, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask you about like play and humor.
Yes.
um so uh it seems like it's really apparent in your work. And is this fun and play focused on an outside element, like the ways that, like the stereotypical ways that like femininity or masculinity is portrayed in media, like in like an external element, or is it an internal focus, or is it more like internally focused? Is the fun and play are more like about you
Mm.
and about the way that you internalize your culture and the gender stereotypes or the stereotypes that are pushed onto you? Um, I mean, it could be both or neither, but I'm just like wondering what direction like humor and play like how they function in your work.
I would say both. So my work actually started when I did my thesis, which was sort of more serious, in terms of the subject. I mean, I think a lot of my work does look at very serious subject matter, like the subjugation of women and like the crime towards women in India. So I think, um, taking the traditions, looking at the traditions that sort of are, sort of the catalyst to this kind of violence is humorous, looking at, like, analyzing that tradition and being like, people are doing this because this is what they believe. There's like inherent humor in that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that the internalized humor is like a form of like survival. If I feel like, if I'm going to just be sort of really upset by, and a lot of the work that I'm looking at, a lot of the data that I look at is heavy. Like, for example, a lot of the we talked a little bit about abstraction, but a lot of the images that I make, right, with my new ink drawings and stuff like that, are derived from statistics of crime against women in India. So I'm looking at categories of like gang rape and rape with murder and all of this stuff, and it was just like 2 days of sheer hell, like looking at that data and trying to process it and sort of extrapolate visuals from it. So
Mm.
if I'm just going to sort of sit there and like, be downtrodden about it, I'm not going to be able to get out of bed for like a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
important to sort of have a little bit of humor with that. So I think that maybe we can like talk about like the painting that I made of like the auntie sitting with crime statistics. So that's like a way that I like processed those like huge numbers,
Yeah.
um, with this like sweet little auntie, just sitting there looking kind of confused. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say this is like a way of, uh I mean, it's like really magical, like the way that you do that, like it's like, would you say that you're transforming like the trauma into something else, like into this like humor and play. Like that's like, would you say that it's like you're taking this and you're turning it into, you're transforming it? Is that like transforming this trauma of like,
yeah, transforming the trauma, but also like making it visual so you can actually like see it, you know? And I think that goes back to like this Eastern philosophy of everything sort of embedded in each other, you know? Like even if you look at the great epics, there's like so much like horror and tragedy, but there's also like beauty in that tragedy and things that come out of it. So it's this like intertwined sort of understanding of being, you know? It's not black and white, it's very gray, you know? So and I think that going back to that philosophy is really important, because there is like this fanaticism in India that sort of forgets that, you know? There's so much like depth in our culture, and there's so much depth in the philosophies that we look at, but it's lost, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of something. I can't remember what it was. I wanted to ask you something else about. I can't remember. I'll try to remember later.
Yeah, we have time. Okay, so I'm going to skip to. I'm going to ask you the collaboration question later, but I was really very curious to know what you think about Maurizio Catalan's banana taped to the wall.
I mean, I thought it was something that's been done before. So I was like, oh, okay. And then also it was just like a reminder that people will buy anything. It's like, it doesn't, like, whether it's nailed down or not, people will buy anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And people like spending money because it feels good.
Yeah.
So that was just like just like a reminder of that. So, yeah.
I thought it was really disappointing because his work is so good otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
Like Toilet Paper Magazine is so rich with visuals. I love the outrageousness of it. And then he just goes and tapes a banana to a wall, and I'm like, come on, you know? And then tries to like cook up this story. And I'm just like, no, I'm not buying this.
What was the story?
Something about how it's not just a banana, like it's just blah, 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 blah.
Like it's not a spoon, like some like Matrix bullshit. Okay. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about all that, but yeah. I think he probably could have dealt with that a little bit better.
Yeah, but you know, I am very sort of grateful that a lot of people shut down talking about that banana as quickly as they did, because I think that a lot of people realize that it's total nonsense, you know? Yeah. Whereas otherwise, like some of the more quote unquote outrageous things that like white male artists do is like talked about at length and like occupies like a space that could be occupied by so many more like substantial things, you know?
Definitely.
And what I loved most was the migrant workers protesting with bananas.
Oh yeah.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. It's like that was good.
That was powerful. I like when art does that.
It's so wild though, because it's so sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, it's a little depressing. Yeah. It's like the lack of, care for like people's lives. But,
yeah. But I'm glad that it was like approachable for them to do that, you know? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I want to ask you about your images. Why do you use these vintage images? I feel like you kind of already answered that. but how do you decide what parts of them you cut up and what parts remain intact?
Mhm.
And how do they interact with like contemporary times?
Yeah. So initially, it was like all about the face, like trying to sort of mask the face or like very apparent identities of the women in terms of like what they were doing. Um, so that was like with the initial series of collages that I made. But then when I started reading about like the sort of differences in women in pre-independent India, I was like, okay, I want to be a little bit more deliberate about this. So when I tied in the concentric circles, it became like what happens to the face and what is it going to do. So it was still like focused on like the face and the identity, but trying to elevate the women in like a different way. Yeah.
Okay.
What was the other part of the question?
Oh yeah, just like how do they connect to contemporary times? Like how do they connect to the world today? And yeah, and I guess like why do you use vintage images?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vintage images, because they're like the sort of identities of women in those images are still very applicable to Indian women today. It's like even in the diaspora here, you know, it's a lot
Yeah.
of women sort of identify with those behaviors and those very specific images. So sort of dissecting them and changing the narrative is like important to me because it like helps me rebuild a different identity,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of like artists and people in general are sort of doing these days, you know, sort of going back to like rewrite certain parts of like history that feel stagnant and sort of not diverse. um so I think it's definitely like in line with some of the things that are happening in contemporary even art history, you know.
Yeah. Would you say that um you're giving like women like a new standard to relate to with
Yeah, maybe not a new standard to relate to, but like giving them specific things that they well, this is like a complicated question because again, like when I started researching sort of like what happened in pre-independent India and like how women were sort of struggling with these dual identities, um it's easy now as a woman to be like, oh, you know, look at them, they were sitting at home and
Mhm.
you know, like being passive or whatever. But like they weren't, you know, there were like women who were fighting against those ideals and maybe they didn't have a choice, you know. So it's like
Yeah. And
um
even if they were, it's not like, that work is not important, like
exact-
that's just very, yeah.
but also like again, it's easy to say that looking at it now, but like I'm sure that, you know, 20 years down the line, like what we're doing might feel sort of like archaic to, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hold them accountable to that. You have to hold society accountable to it, right? You know, like you so I don't know if I'm like rebuilding like what they can do, but like maybe
Mhm.
giving them the characteristics that they had already, you know, but it was like masked by the way that they were in that picture. It was like very
Okay. So giving them more depth.
yes,
Okay. Yeah.
because they were very complex, like complicated women, you know.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. They deserve to have that history told.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you tackle like those kind of the same sort of identities in your work?
Um, I'd say, I mean, I've been working with, um, like playing around with like the different standards of beauty. I've been making portraits of women from these before and after pictures from like these fashion fair ads
Ooh.
where, so like fashion fair was like like one of the first makeup brands it was made like specifically for Black women. And there are these ads that I would come across in the old Ebony magazines, where there'd be like these women before, and they're, they just have like nothing on their faces. They look fine, they look great. And then the after picture where they're like covered in fashion fair makeup, and they look like, some of them look okay, but like some of them look like, a little like clownish, so, but just like playing with like these different ideas like surrounding beauty, and like it's like, and the thing is, it's like, it's not like they aren't beautiful, but just kind of taking apart like these ideas around like what beauty is supposed to look like, and like what Black women are supposed to look like, and like taking more control over like our, like, our appearance or my appearance, or just like playing around with that.
And also, like, probably who sets those standards, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like like the just like the femininity of Black women in general a lot of the time is like put into question. So that's a thing that I also want to address in there. And just dealing with like I don't know, not having to like prove myself, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Like we don't have to prove ourselves to people that aren't willing to accept us as who we are, kind of thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to be a part of that club when they don't want you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like trying to create like an alternative.
Yeah.
Like this, like, there's something else out there. This might not be your thing, or this might be your thing, but like also there's this other world.
Yeah.
Like, so I address that in my work, and then also addressing like I guess like these gendered standards within like these gendered standards in like these relationships, and the ways that, like you were saying, about how like you weren't able to see the depths of like these women's histories within these like just like very like kind of like one-dimensional like calendars, so you're trying to expand that. I came across like a lot of different like alcohol and cigarette ads where there's like, like a man and a woman like sprawled out like on a rug, like, drinking their whiskey. And it's just kind of like that's like not necessarily an image like I can relate to. Like, it's like what if I don't want to be like, with a man? Like, what's that? What's like, where's that? And then also, like, what about the complexity of these relationships in general? Like, that's not portrayed. It's just like some woman, like, looking at this man like he's some god, and and it's like, does she look at him when he's like, when it's like she cooks dinner and he doesn't wash the dishes or something? It's like, I don't think so. So kind of like playing around with like the domestic relationships within romance, and the ways where it's like really complicated and also just like really boring, and just really like, just like the ins and outs of like what that life is, and how it's not all like, gazing into your lover's eyes over like a cool cigarette. So yeah.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. I think we sort of got into this, but I think both our work is inclined to protest enforced stereotypes.
Yeah,
And I
for
don't
sure.
so we just got into this, but I want to know, are there parts of these like characters and new personalities that you create that like reflect you?
Uh, um, yeah. Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like I guess they yeah. I mean, I feel connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I feel like in ways like I aspire to be them.
Mm,
Um, just because I mean, within my work, I'm taking these people that are like really happy within these spaces where they're, drinking Seagram's gin or Canadian Club whiskey, and I'm taking them out of that context where they're just like happy and there's not necessarily like an object of their affection. They're just like in like a state of like happiness,
mm,
just like floating. And I'd say that's something that is really it's something that's really inspiring that like I wish I could be like more. But within my work, I'd say I capture these moments of bliss where um, there's like just like there's like a glimpse of like, oh wow, like everything is perfect
mm.
and everything is fine and there's not a need for anything
Yeah.
else. So that's something, it's like I have those moments here and there, but yeah, that's I'd say that the people within my work are,
Mm-hmm.
like I try to like make my like heroes within my work, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
let me see.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So what artists are you looking at right now, and what media are you looking
Okay, so now that I've been hosting these quizzes and I've hosted like 50 of them now,
at? Yeah.
um, yeah, so I've been looking at a lot of artists and like I'm so glad that I have because they were always like there for me to sort of access, but like this is a great outlet for me to sort of like access them and like really look at them.
Hmm.
Um, and for some reason, I'm like really gravitating towards painting. So, you know, one of my favorites that I've been looking at so far is like Mama Anderson and I don't know how to pronounce her first name, but I'm guessing Genevieve Figgis. Um,
Okay.
and they just use a lot of like pastel colors, and there's like a lot of like flat patterning along with like a lot of depth, which I just like love. Um, and yeah, it's been really like fun looking at that outside of like this gallery space because I've just noticed that like, before lockdown, I was like trying to go to all of these shows and they were like
So
super
exhausting.
hit or miss.
It's hard because it's like you go all the way out to like,
Yeah.
like BFU, whatever. And then it's like you get there sometimes and it's like, like I was on the train for how long? For what now?
So
So I get that.
but one show that I saw in person that I sort of like fell in love with was Agnes Dinez at the Shed. Her work deals with a lot of like numbers and like maybe statistics, but a lot of like numbers and like very detailed like drawings. Um, it was beautiful. Like it like blew me away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. See, it's like moments like that are just like those moments like that are really special.
Yeah.
That's, it makes all those train rides into Nowheresville for like nothing worth it when you have moments like that.
Yeah.
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 So,
Um, how about yourself?
um, Yeah, what have I been looking at? I've been reading. I've been reading a lot.
Hmm.
What have I been reading? I read this book, Heroes of the Frontier, um, recently. I just finished that. I read Love in the Time of Cholera.
Oh,
One of my roommates lent that to me. Um, like spoiler
oh,
alert,
oh.
like if you want to avoid a pandemic, just get on a boat and just don't get off. That's how you do it. That's the secret.
I tried reading that a while ago and I thought it was so slow. Like I just couldn't do it.
It's really slow sometimes, but there's also like it was really slow sometimes, but there's moments where I'm just like, wow, like I really connect to
Yeah.
the
You
people in
know, you know what's really funny? Like things that I have been watching and reading suddenly somehow like have these like tidbits about epidemics.
here. Yeah, it's kind of everywhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like we just put on like this random episode of The Office, and I'm serious, like super random. And then like it's like I think it was Phyllis's wedding, and
Mm.
Dwight walks in and he's like, "We need an epidemic. There are way too many people on this planet." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's."
Oh. Oh.
I
Yeah.
think with Parks and Rec, like something about like a pandemic happening, something like that.
I like to
And
think people have like generally like, kind of like dropped in places here and there for a while now. But now that it's actually here, it's like, oh, like,
yeah,
ugh.
yeah. And most recently, like, so I read this book called Samskara in high school, but like I didn't really like pay attention to the, what was happening in the plot. So I wanted to reread it, and that whole book is about, well, not whole book. I mean, it is like kind of existentialist book, but um, a lot of the plot includes like um, the bubonic plague and like just rats and people just dying in this like Brahmin colony. And I was like, oh my God.
I mean, they didn't know how to wash their hands, you know? It's like they didn't understand what soap and water was. So like, I think we're doing better, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And each like character who picked up a rat by its tail and threw it into the garden got
oh
the
my
plague. And
God.
I was like, you should have washed your hands.
Right? It's not that hard. But like,
Don't get
I guess
that.
we didn't invent soap and water yet.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so getting into favorite like TV shows and movies. Do you have any?
Um, I'm not, it's like I have trouble watching television. It's kind of like if somebody doesn't put it on in front of me, I'm like I'm not gonna watch it. Like I can't watch television. But I've been watching movies lately,
Mhm.
and I watched this movie, Day Trippers, which was really good. It's like some movie from the 90s with Parker Posey in it, who I love.
Okay.
Um, like I forgot how much I loved her. She's in this movie called Party Girl, where it's like I don't know, she's like in some apartment in New York, and then she like she's like spending all this time turning her apartment into like a nightclub to pay her rent. And
Parker
um,
Parker Posey.
yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like I think at some point she's like, "Oh, I want to be a librarian. Like I'm gonna be a librarian," and it's just kind of like about like her journey of like finding herself or whatever. It's I don't know. And then there's this I don't. It's just like a really funny movie.
Yeah.
And then I also watched Permanent Vacation, which is Jim Jarmusch's like first movie, and it was okay. It was good. It was good. Like I I'd I'd say like the script was really good. The acting was like okay, but like it was like a really great movie to
Yeah.
watch. It was a really good movie to watch. Um, so yeah, that's what I've been watching. That's what I've been yeah.
I just finished rewatching The Sopranos, which was amazing.
I need to watch that. That's like, like that show's really good. But it's like, if I don't have somebody to turn it on in front of me, I'm never gonna watch it.
Well, what I do is that I just like put it on and then I like work in the back. Like I work in front of it, you know. I find that I can't work when there's no noise. Like I get really distracted when there's no noise. So I have to have something like playing in the background. So yeah, I finished watching Sopranos, and we've been getting into like a lot of old movies. So we've been on like an Audrey Hepburn binge.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That woman is so like well dressed. It's
I know.
crazy.
It's criminal.
Yeah. Like when you see like the credits, it's like Miss Hepburn's wardrobe designed by Hubert Givenchy. I'm like, oh!
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I've been watching this thing. It's called Quarantine TV. It's like some Twitch channel out of Baltimore. And it's just like television, it's like I don't have to choose what I'm watching, and that's like something that I've just been turning on in the morning and just like letting it play throughout. But it's like 24 hours a day. It's like there's something on. Like last week I was watching Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
and
no.
that shit's wild. I was like, wow, this show is deep. There was one about food. And like Mr. Rogers, like making this like intense eye contact, being like, some people don't have enough to eat in the world, and it's a real privilege to be able to have enough food for yourself and enough food to share with somebody else. And I'm just like, damn, Mr. Rogers, like you're really like telling these kids some things right now. I was like, wow, I'm getting chills. So, and then I was watching Sesame Street too, and that was a riot. Oh my gosh, that show is so good.
Wait, what? Which one were you watching?
Sesame Street.
Oh, Sesame Street.
Yeah. So
no, I didn't grow up with those. I feel like I've missed out on a lot. I feel like I need to go
watch Sesame Street.
Yeah.
You gotta watch Sesame Street. You gotta watch The Muppet Show. Like, okay.
I'll get into it. I don't have anything to watch right now, so I can put those up.
Yeah.
I grew up with dinosaurs. A lot of Tom and Jerry. Tom and
Jerry's great.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, dinosaurs was a big thing in our house. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Classic cartoons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What if what's what's oh how do you incorporate creating your work into your routine?
Oh, that's been so hard. Easier now that you don't have anywhere to go. But like before lockdown, I had a really hard time with it because I didn't know how to like balance admin work and like balance, like actual making time. Now that I'm in quarantine, I'm like, fuck all this admin stuff. Like, I'm just going to like make what I want to make, and it's been great. Like, I think that last year I spent so much time on like applying to things and like admin that I just like didn't produce as much as I would like. And I think producing is important, not only because you're like making, new bodies of work, but you're like actually figuring out what you like and what you don't like about your process.
Yeah.
And when you keep stopping that, like you lose, like valuable information.
Yeah. And also it's like it's like you're an artist. You should be making art,
Yeah,
it kind of feels like, sometimes it just feels like, I mean, it feels kind of like a waste of time sometimes to like spend so much time doing that admin stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in terms of like the design industry and the art industry. Like I feel like there are like set up avenues in the design industry to sort of like quickly go into it. Whereas in art, it's like, oh, so much work.
It's just like stabbing in the dark.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I think that I've also learned that like I need my work in front of me. Like I don't really feel like I can go somewhere to work. So I just like get up, I like start working,
Yeah.
How about you?
I guess like I like wake up, I do whatever my morning, whatever things. And um, I mean, I work like 9 to 5 every day, but just like in downtime, I'm
Yeah.
like sewing something or documenting something
Yeah.
or painting something. So it's just like I just like go back and forth all the time. It's just like a constant thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so getting into like working, is there like something that you like to eat while you work?
Yes, I like to eat dried mango.
Oh my God, you're so healthy.
That's like my thing. I love my dried mango, but it's just like eating candy. It's like I could lie to myself all I want, but like really it's just sugar.
It is
And I
sugar,
got
that
this
is
other
correct.
dried mango that's like the spicy. It has like chili powder and salt on it.
Yeah,
Um so yeah, that's like what I like to eat while I'm working. And like fruit, like, like grapes.
you are so healthy.
I can't, it's like it's like I can't be eating like I can't get into I can't get into the thing where I'm eating like chips and ice cream all the time. I do eat chips and ice
So
cream, but
good.
it's like I still need to treat it as a treat.
Mhm.
How
I
about you?
I just made a video of like my younger brother like refusing to feed me snacks while I work because I go to his house to work sometimes and he
Oh
just like
yeah,
does not have any snacks in his house and it's like
that's rough. That's rough.
yeah.
Snacks are important.
But I honestly I'll snack on anything that you have, but I always have to have coffee. Like I have like 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's
I'm
impressive.
like coffee is super important. Like yeah, coffee. Um, and my favorite snack would be like a dumpling snack, where like make like 4 or 5, well, more like 6 or 7 steamed dumplings and I'll just like eat them.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
need to get on that dumpling tip. Did I get dumplings? I think I might have gotten dumplings. Yeah, I think I have some in my
Chicken
freezer.
dumplings are really good.
I should make those.
But if you have like a H Mart near you, then you can just go
I
low.
wish. I wish. I love H Mart.
It's
Uh,
so good.
I think the closest one to me is like I think it's in K Town. Like I don't. You're close to. You're close to. You're closer to that. You go to that H Mart in K Town.
Yeah, but there's one in on 9th Street as well.
Oh really? In Brooklyn?
No,
Hmm.
9th Street in near like
Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I
no,
mean,
in
I haven't
Brooklyn.
been
Show
traveling
me
over
an
there
H
that
Mart in
much.
Brooklyn. Come on, they have
Huh?
to. They have
I
to
don't.
have an H Mart in Brooklyn.
I mean, they probably do. I have to. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
there's
they?
not. Oh, it's in Woodside.
Where is that? That sounds far. Well, anyway, I work with what I got. I'm out here in Crown Heights. I have my curry goat. I have my jerk chicken. I'm all right. I'm all right. But
Yeah,
I'll get to H Mart one day. But
tell
yeah,
me. I think we're done with the questions.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it. I
Yeah.
mean, I was gonna ask you about like what your favorite article of clothing is right now. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah. Well, right now I only like wearing sweatpants, um,
I
and
love that about
sweatshirts.
you.
But before quarantine, I like did start collecting a whole bunch of like tea dresses because I think that those are really cute.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think that they're like super in style right now.
Yeah.
And they're really pretty. Sometimes I wish that like trends would just stay still.
Um,
But I think that it's just like a matter of your personality because like some people I know will wear the same thing over and over again and they like rock
it's
it.
a uniform. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and and like I aspire to be one of those people. But then again, like I get bored very quickly and like I really like dressing up sometimes. So it's like,
Yeah.
mm.
It's a hard balance.
How about you?
Um, I guess like there's these shoes that I have. Like, so these are the shoes. I love them. I've like literally bought these shoes like I must have like bought like 10 pairs of these shoes by now. Like I have like an alert on eBay every time those shoes appear, and I just buy them. I don't even care how much they cost anymore. I just
What
buy them
are
because I
they?
love them so much. They're just like these I don't know, they're just like these vagabond shoes. I don't know. But
Are they
that's like
from
my
the same
favorite.
brand?
Yeah. They're just like my favorite shoes. I love them. I put them on every day. Yeah,
Oh.
comfy. Yeah, so that's like my favorite thing.
Yeah, right now my favorite thing is these like dark blue sweatpants from Uniqlo. They're
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
Yeah,
I
I
need to.
wear them
I
all
like it.
every day.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've been like, I don't know. I need to find a thing. Cause like, I mean, cause it's getting hot outside, so I'm like wearing skirts a lot. But like, I don't have like a skirt that like I wear
Mm,
like, and I don't have an everyday skirt. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
Well,
that's
this has been really awesome, Dina.
yeah,
Uh,
it's really nice.
I think that Stephanie did such a good job. Well, I feel like I'm patting myself on the back, but I feel
That's okay. If you know who will.
no, but I feel like Stephanie did such a good job pairing us together because it's not
I
just
know.
is not just like visually similar, like it's conceptually similar, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like really looking forward to having like the physical show like set up.
Yeah. I want to see our work in a room together for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's gonna be
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and like I think that collectively we're like saying the same thing, so it would be really like interesting to see how like people respond to that, especially since it's at 92Y and we'll have like so many like different people come to it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. Well, you know, it's been good talking with you,
I
and I'll see you
know.
later.
Yes, and take care and be safe.
Will do. You too.
And I hope I see you back here again soon.
Oh yeah. You'll see me. Don't worry.
Bye. Okay, bye.
Bye.